Alright guys, so as promised, I am going to show you a little bit of the reasons why you might want to reach for something like Redux in your app. So this app that we're working on right now, it's a simple get a list of users app. You can add users and see the list of users. And so what we're going to add now is the ability to become one of the users. And then eventually you're going to be able to click on my profile and then go and update the users as well. And so again, this is a very simple app. You could definitely implement all of this functionality without Redux, with it being such a small app, but this is just going to give you a little bit of an insight into perhaps why Redux is beneficial. So let's get to it. All right, so we've got this list of users, and if you notice, I've added this become this user button under each user. And so if we were to pretend that this is some sort of backend admin panel or something for testing, this would be certainly would be a reasonable feature for those purposes. So here's the button right here. So the first thing we need to do is just add a click handler. So I'm going to say on click, and then I don't know, we'll just say button clicked. Let's just make sure it's working. So go here, it should be refreshed. There it is, and button clicked. Okay, cool. So every button is hooked up. Let's also print the user. So this is referring to this user right here that we're mapping over. And so now I should have the user info whenever I click. There it is. Okay, so there you've got it. That's the info associated with this user. All right, so now what we're going to do is so all we want to do is become this user. And so that means we have to create an action that allows us to update our current user in our user reducer. So this is our user reducer. This is our current user object. So we want to update this with this data, and actually this needs to be underscore ID. So we've got this data coming, which we've now lost. There it is. We've got this data coming, and we want to make this take the place of that. All right, so we're first going to give it a name, and so we're going to say, actually, we'll go down here. We'll say case set current user, return object.assign. So if you remember, what that's doing is we're creating a new instance of an object, and then we're taking our current state and applying it to this new object, and then now we're saying basically how we want it to change. And so we're going to say current user is going to be action dot, we'll call it current user. Now we haven't set this up yet, so now we've got to go and actually build this action. And so rather than go through all the refactoring that we went through in the previous videos, we're just going to dive straight into doing it the right way. So for these constants, I've got set current user, set current user. All right, cool. So that's set up. And then here I'm going to say set current user. That's going to take a user, return an object with the type of constants, set current user, and then actually let's call this current user, because that's going to be the name of this. So we want that to match the name. So now current user. And so we should have that available to us whenever we call this method. And so now in my user list, this is where we can say map dispatch to props the same way that we did whenever we were creating a user, right? And so now I'm going to say const map dispatch to props, and then that's going to take dispatch, and then it's going to return an object. This is actually the way that I usually write my maps, my map state to props, my map dispatch to props. So with this syntax, it's basically saying like this is the parameter. This is with this syntax of doing parentheses and then the curly bracket. That means I'm automatically returning an object. And so now I can just say, what do we call that? Set current user, I believe. Set current user. Not that it matters. I can call it whatever I want here. This is just how I'm going to reference it up here. And so now that's going to equal a function that takes, we'll just call user, takes a user, and then we're going to say, what is it? We need to import our actions. So we're going to say import actions from, and that would be store actions. There we go, from the index. And so now it's this set current user. That's what's going to create that action. And so we're going to say dispatch, and then actions dot set current user. And that, we need to pass in the user there. That I think should work. And then we need to actually call it here. And so we know that we want to pass in a user. And so on click, I'm going to say this dot props dot set current user, and then I'm passing in the user there, so that on this click, this method down here gets called because we've said map dispatch the props. So now I have this available to me as a prop in this component, and then I'm passing in the user that I get here, and then this user is now being passed in as the parameter of this method, and then that user is now getting passed into set current user in my actions. So now this is that same user that we were mapping over, and now I'm returning an object that has a key of current user, which is equal to that user that we passed in. And then in my user reducer, I'm listening for that set current user. And now up here, I'm setting current user equal to the current user that I have available on that action, which is the user that we were mapping over. So let's give it a shot, see what happens. Let me open up my Redux tools. So right now, in my user reducer, current user is nothing. Let's see if this worked. It did not work. Can I property props undefined? That probably means that I'd try to pass this dot props to a presentational component. And let's see, that's my server code. User list. Yeah, this is a presentational component, so this is not defined. There we go. This should work. I would expect that it would at least. Okay, let's open up this current user, and there it is. All right, so now I can become any user that I want just with a single click. All right, so that's the first step for allowing us to make this app a little bit more powerful. I will see you in the next video.